Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. I was so happy see the donuts here as well. Honestly, and they're from Kamehameha Bakery. I can't get better than that. And in fact, uh, Susan asked me about picking those up, and Nathan. They were talking about it, and they asked what I thought. Sorry, just getting this singing. What I thought about it, and I said, "Well, I thought the yeast you could do, you know." Uh, though I thought it was a very holy effort. You know. Sorry. Yeah, you had that kind of glazed look on your eyes already. Sorry about that. Today's. Oh. Very good. Very good. I'm actually really impressed. Thank you. Okay. I don't know what we talking about today. Oh, no, at the table. I love this. I was here when Pastor Cheryl introduced the series about at the table. A table is one of my favorite pieces of furniture in the house because we gather around that to eat and to share and be involved. And just the idea about the table being kind of a picture image, a reminder of the presence of God. And so we come to that, invited to that. And, you know, there's been wonderful messages about that. And today, we're looking at the King Solomon and his life and finding what matters most. Finding what matters most. That's the passage we're looking at and focus. And I want to introduce that a little bit. We have some sharing and stuff coming up. But I just want to say, you know, last week I was on a Alaska cruise with my family. Our grandkids had never been on a cruise, and my daughter-in-law and our son Anthony and Andrew and his kids. So 5 kids, and the 3 of them and me. So maybe that's 6 kids in them. I don't know, but. We had a great time. We left out of Seattle, went through Alaska, got off and saw many things. But the third night, we were in Juneau, and that night, little Maya, she's 6.5 years old. She was on the top bunk in their family room. They have a couple beds and a bunk bed. She fell off the top of the top bunk. She got soaring off the side, and you know, of course, to catch herself, she sort of put her hand down there, and she broke her arm right here in Juneau. And so Juneau's bad, you know. It's not Juneau's fault, but so you know, on the ship. So Anthony and I were out at another place, and they right offshore, just having a little time together. And then Michelle called. She's in, you know, she's really kind of panicked, upset. They took Maya to the doctor. They were on the ship, and they said, "Oh, this is broken. You need to go to the hospital in Juneau." So they got off the ship. Michelle and Maya, Anthony stayed back with the other 2 kids and all of us, and there's a lot of paperwork and all those things. Well, she was able to get to the hospital. The doctor had to press it back in place, you know, and it's off a little bit and press it in. And Michelle said, "Oh, Maya just wailed." But after that, she had no more pain. They sent her, the next day they got off. The ship had to leave that night, so they had to go to the airport and fly to Skagway, where we were, and we picked them up there and got back on the ship. But why I'm bringing all this up is, besides that the food was great on the cruise, was Maya. She was in a sling the whole rest of the trip. But you know, you almost wouldn't know it. She was just so great. She just was herself. She was half hunched. She didn't even have to take more painkillers. And it did. And even Michelle said, "Guys, her arms like this the whole time." And yet she was just great, having fun, playing. You wouldn't know that. Almost forgot that she had that. In fact, one morning I saw her and she's got paper and she's drawing. I said, what are you drawing? And she says, "Oh, I'm drawing the house and the ship here and all of us. Like, it's like our new house," she called it. And I said, "Oh, that's really nice. It's good. You're doing really well." And she goes, "Yeah, well, I'm using my left hand. I never drew with my left hand, so I'm learning how to draw." And there she was. And I bring that up because here it was, a tragedy in a lot of ways, as you feel her. And all of us felt so bad and really concerned. And Maya just remembered what was most important. And she had fun with her cousins and her sisters and, of course, her wonderful grandpa and everybody else. And she just reminded us, because we were kind of bothered about the cruise and how they handle the details and all of that. It was a little bit less personal. And she just reminded us, set that aside. We're here together. We enjoy. And she led us in that way. And oftentimes in the worst of tragedies, you know, listen to those who remind us what's most important, because that's God speaking to us, calling us to what matters most. That's what we want to talk about today. And we'll look at Solomon. Um, you folks have done so much good and powerful ways that, I've been, Nathan and I have been friends for about 47 years, I think it is. I was 2 years old. He was a little older than me. And I was a youth pastor, and he came to the church. We got to know each other really well and been friends for a long time. And so he's in a most difficult, challenging season of his life. I'll let him share more about that. Well, one day he wanted to come and share and thank you. You came to his house, and some of you for quite a while, for weeks, and some of you came on that Sunday and just cleaned out the house and prepared him and helped him transition to the plaza in Kaneohe, where he's at now. And so it's a beautiful thing. Huh? Yeah, okay. So is anything else? And so, no, here's the pictures. Here's Cheryl. She's having a big glass of wine. That's good. You know, she was enjoying herself. And here's Nathan wondering, what did I get myself into? They're not going to put me in there, I think is what he was saying. But no, but you just see the house was full. Robbie, many of you were there. And even Nathan was looking for stuff he could take home and sell, I think. I'm not sure. But it was a great time. And that was before. And then do we have some after too? There's Larry and Nathan. We tried to bench them, and they walked away with it. They're just cleaning up the house anymore, or is that it? Well, here's the house afterwards. And there's the dog. Maya and Daisy gave the dog a bath. And Nathan, look at that. The house was just emptied and cleaned out. And there's Nathan's mom, Helen, with Nathan. And such a beautiful gift that you gave to Nathan. And he'd like to come and share a few words of how this moved and spoke to him. In one of the worst times of his life, some powerful stuff he has to share. So I'd like to invite Chaplain Nathan Kohashi to come and share a few words.
So when I was given a diagnosis of, hello. When I was given a diagnosis of MSA, it's a neurological disorder that has no cure and basically shortens your lifespan dramatically. The possibility of dying really didn't bother me. I knew I was going to go. What I didn't expect was how fast it moved and how it disables in the sense of being able to walk. And that was kind of tricky because I could pick up things kind of, but there's a lot of things I couldn't do. And when I did walk, I noticed I had people would be rushing to me saying, "You need help?" I have now I have a lot of relatives in the retail business. They come up and go, "Uncle, you need help. Uncle, you got to do. Uncle, you." I got a lot of nieces and nephews now. Oop. Yeah. The other surprise was the overwhelming response I got from all of you. All it took was accepting Susan's offer of help at Dale's birthday. And next thing I knew, she's calling and said, "We're going to be there. We got the people." About 55 people came over during the course of a weekend. And we're talking about a house on an acre of ground, 4 bedrooms, library. Had I tried to do what I thought I was going to do it myself, I would have finished in December 2020, never. You know, the heart and the vibrancy of a church is found in the people, in the activities that you do. And I got a chance to see that firsthand. Through Susan, she hired Robbie. And I never knew how gifted Robbie was. I mean, she would come every day. Another friend from outside was coming, someone named Cherie Moore, my mom's friend. She came and helped a lot. Laura, we've known for each other for 40 years. Dale, Jamie. They kept checking on me, make sure I'm doing okay. It was incredible. Each of you gave from your gifting. Laura, in terms of, Cheryl as a lawyer, thank you so much. Even I got to find out Jeremy's a good bodyguard. We went to the plaza one time, and Jeremy was like right next to me, and like making sure I wouldn't fall. I thought, shoot. Other things was getting to reconnect with Larry from seminary, see him again, and see him lead the men's while they try to figure out what the heck was he was talking about. I got a chance to see Nate. Where's Nate? Nate. I got a chance to see Nate sweat. That was pretty interesting. But he had nothing on Robbie and Sharia. They were really. I enjoyed just connecting and talking with Dean and talking with Gordon. Even our dog benefited. Maya and Ed Washam did a great job, and the neighbors jumped in and adopted him. Other things that I saw was that people were connecting with each other and having a great time. My friend Jamie and his son-in-law, Robbie, got a chance to clear out the shed. The women, the men were just enjoying themselves. John Fukumai set up a caroling at the plaza, so I get to see you guys sing. Later, Laura and I went to the DMV to do a safety check because it was expired. And so was the registration for about since COVID. So I thought, oh, this is going to take forever. And what makes it worse was the safety check was like at 10, and afterward we were going to go to the DMV, and I'm thinking, in the middle of the day, great. So we went to the safety check, 20 minutes done. But they need to meet us to go to the DMV. Went there. You know how many people were there? Nobody. Not only nobody. There was a volunteer there. I expected her to say, I'm sorry, we're closed. But she came and she said, how can I help you? And it was done really quickly. And I'm thinking, this never happens. You know, it's like, there's so much outpouring of care and love from all of you. I was thinking to myself, what do I deserve to merit all this? There's nothing, to have an empty DMV. And then I heard from God, that's the point, stupid. Yeah. The heart and vibrancy of a church is found in the activities of the people. And in a new way, I found out what it means when God said, where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I with them. I thank you for showing me God's presence through all the things that you have done. I just can't say enough from that. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, if anyone knows where my remotes are, all three of them are missing. So if anybody has any clue, let me know. Appreciate that. Thank you.
So you want those remotes back? Is that what you're saying? I'll bring them by. No, thank you. You ready? Thank you, Nathan. Good man. One of the things that you said, as he called me that Sunday night after, or the week when I got back anyway, and he was saying that in the worst time of his life, death is fairly evident on the way, closer and sooner than imagined. He said so, and then the house just overwhelming. And we were over there. I've been known Nathan long time, and over this last year over there quite a bit, and really just sitting there, I thought, oh my God. And then the dog, all these things, and how the doors opened and things came. But in the worst of times was also the best of times, where he saw God's presence and God's grace through you and the efforts and the things that you did and shared and the way people have cared for him. That's it talks about you, but it also talks about Nathan's heart, and that's what we'll be looking at today. How does God help us come with a heart to be able to see and appreciate and value and be moved by what God is doing in our midst? Because God's doing a lot all the time, and really some of it is that we're just not attuned to it. We're not as open to it as we could be, because we're captured by all the things, oftentimes really important things, and things like his house was overwhelming. That's all you could see. And yet in the midst of that overwhelmingness, Nathan had a heart to see God at work in very powerful and meaningful ways. And you have seen that as well. And just want to encourage you today. And this is what Solomon, I thought, I never really, I think I've spoken about him before, maybe, but I've never paid that much deeper attention to Solomon. And so in this, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I hope it's helpful for you as it has been for me. So let's get to this. This is from First Kings chapter 3, verses 3 through 15. It's in your notes there. And I'll just read this, but let's just start the first three words. Solomon loved God. Solomon loved God. And when we love God, we're not perfect. We're not perfect in doing that and showing that, but that opens the doors for a relationship because God loves us. And what he's really looking for, and like Solomon's father was David, and it says what God said about David. Here's a man after my own heart. Now, David had his imperfections and some substantial failures, and yet God still saw what? Not just the decisions of his life, but the heart that he lived with. And so even in his failures, God could still see the heart that God gave to him, and David, helping David learn to live into it and grow into that, to be aware and to be connected and related with God so he could live out his life with God and what God is doing in response to what God is doing. So God always looks at the heart. And so what it starts right here is that Solomon loved God. That was in Solomon's heart. He wasn't perfect, but found out later on in his life, you follow his life and stuff. But what God saw was his heart. And so Solomon loved God and continued to live in the God-honoring ways of David, his father, except that he also worshiped at the local shrines, offering sacrifices and burning incense. So he loved God, and he also had it in him, in his background, his culture, to go to these shrines and offer, offerings and try to connect and seeking whatever he may be seeking, which I think is why God spoke to him in this time in such a powerful way. The king went to Gibeon, the most prestigious of the local shrines, to worship. He sacrificed 1,000 whole burnt offerings on that altar that night. And that night, there in Gibeon, God appeared to Solomon in a dream. And listen to what God said to him. He didn't say, "What the heck are you doing over there?" He didn't say, "You're out, you're fired," or, "I quit on you," or any of that kind of stuff. He spoke to Solomon because I think what he saw that in Solomon's going out to Gibeon to offer, he loved God, but he's searching for something, for connection, for meaningful ways of relating to God and finding answers in his life, encouragement and strength and courage. We all get some of that. But where do we go for it? And that's where God came to Solomon in a dream at night and spoke to him. And look at what he said to him. I don't know. This is worth underlining. I think this is amazing. He says, "What can I give you? What can I give you?" That's what God said to Solomon. What can I give you? I mean, that's a powerful thing. Have you ever really heard God? I'm still learning to listen and hear God say, "What can I give you? What do you need? What are you looking for? What are you searching for? What really matters?" And if you can answer that in a moment like that, I don't think you wrestle with that question long enough. Because we spend our lives searching what we want and what we think we need our way. But God really says, let's get down to the root of it, to the core, to what really makes a difference, what matters most in life and in your life. What can I give to you? I remember Anthony was working years ago, he's in the film industry, and the movie, I don't know if you saw the movie Tropic Thunder years ago, Robert Downey Jr. So it was hilarious. Anyway, it's controversial, but it was good. He worked on that. And he was just starting in the movie industry, and he got hired in the camera department, but he was new and young, and the director of photography, Thomas Tall, had 2 to 3 Academy Awards for directing photography in big films. And so Anthony worked under him, and he came, and for the first week, they didn't even talk to him. He just worked and did what they told him, worked hard. It was on Kauai, and they were just climbing up in mountains to put cameras all over for each day. It was a lot of hard work. He was there for a week. And then after 1 week, the director and his immediate team called him in and said, well, how did you get here? Who do you know? Who gave you this in to come and work here? Who's your father, or mother, or uncle, auntie, or whatever? Because usually these guys get kind of in as a favor to somebody. And they don't last more than a week, is what they told Anthony. And he said, well, no, I worked on a couple small things, and I just tried, and some other people from there suggested me, and they hired me. He said, really? So, wow. He asked Anthony, here's this director guy, and Anthony's just starting. He said, so what do you want? Why are you here? What do you really want? And in a sense, kind of asking, what can I give to you? What matters most to you? Why are you here? You're working hard, and you're not ready to quit. You're staying with it. So what do you want? And Anthony, he's young and stuff. He said, well, I want your job. Which was good. He went for the gold in a way, because that's really what he wanted. And so the guy said, oh, okay. They kind of laughed and looked, and he said, okay, great. He honored that, and he said, all right, tell you what, every day, we're really busy. Nothing gets happened. The actors don't come, nobody else, until this crew gets the cameras all set up. So there's a lot of pressure early in the morning. But he said, you come to me every day. I'll take a minute with you, and you got one question every day, and make it worthwhile. What's your big question today? And Anthony said, he's telling me, I said, wow, that's great. And he said, yeah, it was great. But after about a week, man, it was panic. I didn't sleep at night because I kept thinking, I got to think of a good, worthy question every day. And so in fact, he said one day, because they work like 18 hours, he just sleeps, gets up, and goes right back. And he said one day he's driving from Lihui into their film spot, and he said, oh my gosh, I forgot to think of a question. And he's panicking, he's trying to drive and think, and he gets there, and he came up with a question, and really the director said, that's your question. He says, take a minute, rethink this, come up with a worthy question. And what he was doing was helping Anthony get down to what really matters, what's really important. I think that's God's heart for us. He's not satisfied with the life that we're pretty good, but we tend towards complacency or towards comfort, towards safety, towards control is often big with many of us, to make sure at least I know what I'm doing, and I think so, and I'm trying hard and holding on. We worry, we spend a lot of time with worry, understandably. Discouragement, all this kind of stuff of trying to, or if I just can get this job, or I get this or get that, I'll be okay. And God says, what really matters in this? And that's what he was asking Solomon. What can I do for you? What can I give you? He says. What can I give you? And then here's that little one word after that. He says, what can I give you? And then he says, ask. Ask. He didn't say go earn it, go prove it, go show that you're worthy, go convince me that you are good enough. He said, ask. Ask. What really matters? Will you ask me for it? Will you let me speak into your life? I don't know. I think that's pretty powerful. Does that move you? Does that challenge you, get you thinking? And you think, well, I think I know, I'm okay. And God says, no, there's more to you. Because when you are beginning to ask God, what can he give to you? And you're thinking about asking that, he's really actually inviting us to rely on him and the work of the Holy Spirit to decide how he really made us. Because he put in us what matters most about how to really live in this life. And we have passions and moving things that move us, that are really important to listen to and pay attention to and to begin to live into, as that's most important. Now sure, providing for families and working and taking care of ourselves are all really important. And then getting down to, but why what really matters in the time in this life that I have? That's what he's asking of us. He says, I want you to find out. I could tell you, but better you go search it out. You have to sort through where you're stuck and where you're kind of leveled off at, and go deeper to what you really got to live up for and live about, be about. And ask me. I mean, imagine that. I said, you can ask anything. One good question every day. Why am I here? Well, God, how do I make the most of this time that I have? Okay, we got to the first 5 verses of the passage. So I'll continue on. Here we go. Solomon said, and listen to this. Listen to Solomon's response. Solomon said, you were extravagantly generous in love with David, my father, and he lived faithfully in your presence. His relationships were just, and his heart was right. This is what Solomon is describing his father. And this is why God said, this is a person after my own heart, David. And Solomon saw this. He saw God's extravagant, generous love, and he saw David receiving and living into that. Not perfect in his life, but with that heart. And you have persisted in this great and generous love. This is great. You have persisted in this great and generous love by giving him, and this very day, a son to sit on the throne. I'm your gift to my dad, huh? But what he did say is, what he was saying is that, yeah, you blessed my father with someone to pass the throne on to and to follow God's lead and caring for God's people. Having a king wasn't God's idea of how to lead his people, but that they were insisting, so he worked with that. And it was really tumultuous. There's ups and downs, some of the worst people, leaders, and some good ones. David was one of the best. But here Solomon felt this connection, this history, this belonging. And mainly he saw this generous love of God working in his father's life and in his life. And now here I am, God. My God, you have made me your servant, ruler of the kingdom in place of David, my father. I am too young for this, a mere child. I don't know the ropes, hardly know the ins and outs of this job. And here I am, set down in the middle of the people you've chosen, a great people, far too many to ever count. Here's Solomon coming to just real honestly with God about who he is. And he's scared spitless, I'm saying. I mumble sometimes. I want to make sure. I'm not cussing here at all. Spitless. I should say something else altogether, I suppose. Anyway, he's just being, man, this is way over my capacity. He was honest about who he was. And God said, okay, you're out. Let's find somebody else. No. And God says to him, and he says, here's what I want, God. Give me a God-listening heart, so that I can lead your people, discerning the difference between good and evil, for who on their own is capable of leading your glorious people? Of all the things he could ask, what mattered most, he could have asked for lots of things, and God will get to this. He could have asked for any kind of stuff, and what he asked was a God-listening heart to lead and serve your people well, to be useful in this world for your glory, for your sake, your way, with your heart. When it comes down to it, that's what matters most. And when God asks us, what can I give to you? Ask. Get past the initial things. Look at them and say, why is that important? Why is that important? Get down to what really matters with my life in the time that I have. And man, I wrestled with this for a long, long time. Even as being a pastor, I love being a pastor, and I love serving you and growing with you. And yet, really, deep down, the greater experience is when I could just be with people and listen and connect and hear their stories and be able to find God speak in a way that beyond me, oftentimes, of words that brought them closer to God and connected in a way. And you know, I've always loved sharing the stories. There's so many stories even in this trip, but I'll save those for another time or something, of people we met. And it's just amazing to me the doors God opens where there can be a powerful time when listening, that God somehow uses me that way. And that's become more and more of give me capacity to listen to you, God, to listen to people, and to be able to be involved and be present with you in people's lives that changes people, that helps people, that ministers, that serves, that heals, that lifts them, helps them find their way. And really, frankly, it's much easier when working with God than trying to make that happen. Because that to me is what he's put on my heart, what matters most. I'm still finding my way into that. So God, the master, was delighted with Solomon's response, and God said to him, because you have asked for this and haven't grasped at a long life or riches or the doom of your enemies, but you have asked for the ability to lead and govern well, I'll give you what you've asked for. I'm giving you a wise and mature heart. And there's never been one like you before, and there never will be one after. He said, I like what you're asking. You went for the goal. You went for what's most important. You'd spoke of that. You'd got right to it. What really matters in the long run. And all the things he listed, having power, having wealth, having even destroy his enemies, that was the usual and kind of the pressure as a king to be that kind of a leader. And we have a lot of pressure that wants to shape who we are and how we are, what you should be doing in life. And God says, what? Ask me what you want. Just ask. Because I'm listening to at what level you've gotten down to what matters most. And I want to help you. I'll keep asking until you get down to the core of what I put in you for you to discover and to begin to take hold of and live out in this world. And so as a bonus, I'm giving you both the wealth and glory you didn't ask for. There's not a king anywhere who will come up to your mark. And if you stay on course, keeping your eye on the life map and the God signs as your father David did, I'll also give you a long life. God didn't spend any time on. And by the way, I'll destroy those guys you don't like so well. He didn't do that. Because God's about saving people. Anything God deep down put in us to be about, it'll always be about saving people, helping people, loving people. His compassion for this world, for every single person. I was at the bank the other day, just settling some paperwork with our house and all that kind of stuff. A new person there, and she's a personal loan person. She's kind of new, and she's from the Mississippi, and we started talking a little bit, and she kind of around to asking, about what I do and stuff. And I said, well, I'm a pastor that's semi-retired or whatever you want to call it, finding my way. And so she said, well, what do you think about this Israel-Palestine thing? And I said, well, I mean, and she started getting at, what side are you on? And don't you think, biblically, what does it say? Who should we be for? And I, I'm there in that moment, I'm listening to her, and we're drawn towards sides and power and right and who's wrong and who deserves and that. And I said, I'm for everyone. I think God is too. I said, it's a complicated historical challenge, but I know God cares about every single person, and God's always about compassion for everyone. Sorting out all of those complicated things, I don't know. And I said, but I do know God cares for everyone, and He doesn't take sides for and against. He takes sides for everyone. I said, that's how I see it. She goes, oh, yeah, my mom told me, Jesus cares and loves everyone. And, she says, yeah, I kind of come from a pretty conservative background that wants to find a side. Who's right, who's wrong, who's for. And in that issue, it's pretty complicated. But she goes, yeah, that's true. Jesus is for everyone. And I wasn't there. That just, these conversations come up, but this is what I love. Just being present and listening. And people ask when you're listening, and they give an opportunity to speak into their lives. And she says, that's really true. Jesus came for all of us. He died for everyone. She's saying this. I said, so we got up, we sang a few worship songs right there in the bank, and it was pretty fascinating. Anyway, no, we didn't. But she goes, yeah, no. And it's just like she it's just this powerful time of God speaking to her in her heart. So Solomon, he said, I'll give you a long life. So Solomon woke up. What a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, took his place before the chest of the covenant of God. He kind of honed back into his worship of God that he knew. And now they didn't have a place, but he knew where to go for that. And worship by sacrificing whole burnt offerings and peace offerings to God, now the Father. And then I love this. Then he laid out a banquet for everyone in his service. He just made a big feast. Doesn't that sound like our heart? And maybe there are some donuts there probably too, but what else? So here's the notes. We'll kind of go through this a little briefly. Briefly for me anyway. So here's a few things I've been thinking a lot about. So God appeared to Solomon in a dream. God said, what can I give you? Ask. At the table of God's presence, to come into God's presence, and wherever that may be, we can find to just with our hearts to be in God's presence. I find what matters most by number one, following Solomon's kind of guidelines, that's revealing what is weighing most on my heart, revealing to God. This is what's weighing on my heart. Because if we don't acknowledge it, it just keeps riding and leading our lives, and we kind of hold it privately. Well, I'll take care of this. Now, God, can you bless this or change this or do something, or I'll try to keep doing Bible study or going to church or serving. But what's weighing on our heart? For Solomon, it was that, man, he felt totally inadequate for the responsibilities of the people that God was entrusting to as a king. And he knew it was with God, but he just said, I'm not adequate for this. And many of us come to the places with our sons or daughters, our husbands, wives, our people we work with, the situations in our lives, with our finances, whatever we're up against. They're weighing on us. Sometimes just who we are. And God says, I hear you. Let's reveal this. Let me know. Bring it to me. When I'm asking you, what are you asking of me? I'm really asking, what are you living with? And what do you hope for? What have I put in you? And we can't get to that when we're weighed down so much. Our minds are so full of the things that weigh upon us. And you can't go through this life without having a lot weighing upon you. If you're really open and you really care and really honest about our lives. He's calling for an honesty and an openness. Why? Because what Solomon knew, we know, is that God really loves us with a generosity of love and care. And how we show our love with God and to God is just being honest about who we are, what we're carrying in our minds and in our hearts. The concerns and the things that's driving us, the voices of our past that keep feeling like we have to prove our worthiness and correctness or condition, love, that we're lovable even, and all that. God says, mistakes and things of your past, He said, share it with me. Really release it to me so we can go deeper into who you really are. Because if those things are hard and difficult and painful, understandably, He said, I hear you, I'm with you. And some of them are so scary, they block us right there. We can't get deeper into who God made us to be because we're stuck at what we're holding on privately, that we think no one would understand. It would be shame if we shared this. And God said, hey, that's how I help you. Let it go. Solomon knew this. He shared that. He said, now here I am, God. But, I've read that. When we know we are loved, we are free to be real, to be honest, to be genuine. Because no longer what's at stake is if we're acceptable. God already settled that for us. Long history of that. He says he did that. So not just to make us correct, but to make us whole, make us real, to help us find how He really made us, what He made us for in this world. And it's always for good. We just haven't fully got there yet. But that's where He's leading us. Facing our doubts, our concerns, our struggles, our weaknesses helps us look to God for His support, for His guidance, for His healing, for His release, for His strength. And bring it to Him. That's what He's saying. That's what Solomon did. What matters most for our lives will bring us to our own limits and bring us closer to God's capacity to help. So when we come to welcome God's capacity to live into His purpose for our lives, He begins to move in us. By bringing our honesty to God, releases us to rely on God. The less honest we are with ourselves with God, the less we're allowing Him to really work and move with us and help us. We're trying too hard to do it on our own. And Solomon said, I can't do this on my own. He was right. He was correct, 100%. God knew that. He was waiting for Solomon to come to that himself. So here's a question I can ponder here, and I hope you take this home, and this is helpful through your week if you take some time to be present with God at the table at your own home. Is what concerns or fear, struggle, lostness takes up my attention at this time? What is this taking up so much my attention? And I felt that at times, and a lot of times. And some things it's there. I can't hardly think around it. Of course, situations with my sons or our family or my own self and people I know. And there's a lot going on. What's happening in Israel, all of that, all these things take up our mind and heart. From the very deeply personal to this world we live in, of course. The shootings recently, it's just heartbreaking. And God says, yeah, I hear you, I'm with you. So what is it that's taking up our attention? Can I honestly bring that to God? That's all He asks. Bring it to me. Bring it. Share it. Let me know. That's the question for you to think about this week. Give you a moment. At the table of God's presence, I find what matters most by number 2, asking for what matters most in my heart to live the most, to begin to discover what really matters the most so that I can live the most, make the most of this life. I've shared with you some, and it's just about coming up next week will be 1 year. I had my heart attack out in the ocean out on the way to Flat Island in Kailua, and so I'm really good. I'm well. They said your heart's fine. They just did a CAT scan recently on my brain. They said we're a little concerned there. It seems fairly empty. There's a lot of echoing going on. I said, well, yeah. That's been a life. Anyway, sorry, sidetrack. But I'm really good. I'm healthy, amazingly, probably the healthiest I've been in my life. Thank God for those heart attacks, I guess. I don't know. But no, I'd been, excited and all that. Anyway, but what really struck me was about that when I was out there, quite a ways away out in the middle of the ocean, is I couldn't breathe. I thought I was suffocating. I didn't think I was going to make it, and honestly. And, I didn't feel a panic. And it kind of solidified something that God had been saying to me. It's that, dying, and Nathan reminded me of this, dying's not the worst thing. Not living, that's the worst thing. In the time that we have, what matters most? And it wasn't that I came back to shore and it was just, okay, change my whole life from what it was to what it should be, but it did sharpen and clarify and affirm and convince me to live as best that I can in my own messy, flawed way, to make the most of the days of life that I have. And I'm still learning to hone towards that and find that and discover that. But God's changing me and shaping me. He's encouraging me on the way as I keep pursuing what matters most, how He made me. And I for a long time, I felt early on in my ministry, especially, I actually told God, I was in a little more formal traditions of Christian church at that time. And so I knew Paula and them back at KEC. I thought, and the pastors at that time, this was, I don't know, probably 50 years ago or something, I guess, yeah. I was 2 years old, and I was thinking, no, I remember seeing, I felt called to be a pastor shepherd, sort of, but most of the other pastors, they were really smart. They were kind of formal, and I felt many of them were little, you didn't know, they didn't have a lot of humor, a lot of them, I knew at that time, and I thought, I'm kind of you might not know this, I goof around once in a while, a screwball. Anyway, but I just thought, and they just didn't seem that warm and passionate about people. I know they loved God, and that was, and very educated, very thoughtful. None of which I'm known for. But anyway, I said, God, I just don't see it. I'm not a pastor like them, And really, very well, I felt like Solomon. Maybe that's why I relate to it. And he said, I'm not asking you to be like them. I'm just asking you to be you, who I made you to be. Now go serve in this capacity. And I would say I've loved that. And being at Wellspring, you really loved me and gave me a chance to grow and come and just be who God made me to be and serve you in that way. And you continue to do that and support that. And I'm still learning. But it was those moments of what matters most? How did God make me? And sometimes we run with it, but do we really think down why? How is God using how He made you to make an impact in this world? And it's really, you can't model that after everybody else. I mean, the problem in the Christian church sometimes is somebody has a successful ministry, so they teach it, everybody tries to live like somebody else. And it's good stuff, but really should be more that inspires us to figure out, how do I live into that creatively, instead of trying to replicate anybody, recreate out of who you are. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so... but you can't know that unless you have some sense of what matters most to you, what really moves you, what draws you, what leads you, what stirs in you. About this is important. You might not find everybody agreeing with that. We were on the train in Seattle running from our hotel down to Pike's Market. We had a free day, and this lady comes in on a walker, and she had a big coat on, and she was a big lady. And she had some chicken in her hand, and she comes on and sits across the place from us. Here's me and Michelle and the girls and Anthony, and so she comes in. You weren't sure. She was kind of imposing figure at some point, sat right across from us, and she's sitting there, and then she starts talking, says hello, and the more she talked, you wonder, oh, where's this going? It just got friendlier and friendlier, more open. She's asking about what we're doing. We're getting off Pike Market. She goes, yeah, me too, or this stop for that. And she's going, and then she's asking about the family, and we've got a day there. Are you staying? I said, no, we're going on a cruise. Oh, where are you going? And she's asking really good questions, and we're responding. And at first, you could just feel Michelle and Anthony kind of grabbing, pulling in close to the kids. Oh, what's coming? And then they started opening up as she talked, and I just was asking more questions and found out, actually, she's going there because she used to live on the streets. She was homeless. As she's eating her chicken, I thought, it looked like good chicken. I was tempted to ask her, where'd you get that? That looks really good, but I didn't. But I stayed in focus and just listening to her. And she has a ministry now because God spoke to her when He saved her and rescued her. She has a heart for the people who are lost and broken. And she, I'm just giving my life to that. It was beautiful, beautiful. She knew something about what matters most for her life. And we're listening and talking. She's asking about us. Finished or got off our stop, and I just felt moved. I reached in and pulled out some money to give to her, and I said, "This is for you and your ministry, and like whatever you want, And she went and oh, thank you, bless you. I'm going to buy some food for some people today, and this will really help and stuff. And I said, oh, whatever you feel. It was a beautiful moment. Anthony, after for a moment, he kind of teased me. He said, oh, Dad, thanks for giving our life story to this complete stranger on the train, you know. I said, all right, whatever. I'm doing what God made me to do. Huh? And I said, take it up with him. And he said, no, he's just joking. He said, no, actually, he said, it was quite touching, quite moving. I've known you all my life, Dad. But I haven't been with you out in the wilds of the street for a while. And Michelle said, yeah, you know, and what Anthony said, you never made it about you. She didn't even know you were a pastor. You never made it about that. You just listened to her. You engaged with her. And Michelle said, yeah, you asked such great questions, and you were there, right present, in this rail thing we're running across. And I don't take that as, you know, I just felt it was really touching and encouraging simply to be who God made me to be. Live into it as best I know how, as best as you know how. Everyone wants different. Nobody's exactly like me at all. Thank God for that. I think there's only room for one wild Dale in this world. But you folks are beautiful. And the way I was so moved when Nathan talked about how touched he was by each of you. And I know he'd like to go down the whole list. But we were talking the other night, and he was sharing that when I got back. And I said, wait a minute, I thought it was next week. I was on vacation. Planned that pretty well. But the way he talked about how moved he was and how you, in your own ways, gave different gifts and lived out who you are, I was brought to praise of God and so grateful for you. And Nathan was. I was really moved by what he saw and what it took into his heart of what God was doing. And that's Nathan's gift. That's how Nathan's made. That's why he's such a great chaplain, great person. He's a man of great wisdom. He's a real wise guy, in the best sense of the word. That's how he's gifted, how he's made up. And you each have that. So asking for what matters most in my heart to live the most, that's something to wrestle with and think through. So I leave you this question. What would you ask of God to live the most meaningful life with God? What would you ask him? If you try to think, God, what would help me live the most meaningful life? What would you ask of him? Help me do what? Show me how. This is what I think. And then let him keep working with us. And the Holy Spirit will keep refining that in greater and greater ways. And I encourage you to take some time this week, this month, this year. I've been thinking this question probably for multiple years through my life. And I find God keeps going a little deeper, affirming and encouraging on the way. There's this great book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I love. I've read it probably 10 times. I think we've even did a 6-week study on that here at Wellspring some time back. And in there's a line, it's about a young man trying to find his purpose in life and goes on this journey, searching. And then he meets this king that has great wisdom, and he says, when we're pursuing our personal legend, they call it in the book, or our vision, our purpose, what really matters most, they use the language, the universe conspires to encourage us. And I just that when we're really searching for what matters most, God will always work to encourage, to guide, and to nurture. Now, we'll have when we're really pursuing what matters most, we'll be challenged with the great challenges and discouragements and feel like giving up. And that's the time to press through, because that's refining us. Because God's encouraging us to find our way. When it seems like the worst of life, God will bring encouragement to find the best of who he made us to be. Nathan reminded me of that. So what would you ask of God to live the most meaningful life with God? If you could ask anything, why not? Why not try? Because he loves you. You don't have to worry about that. He won't be offended. He may say, really? That's your request? Okay, let's think about this a little more. Let me help you go a little deeper. Okay, I'm going to number 3 now. At the last one. Or wait, I guess I got 6 here. No, this one. I love being here with you. Thank you so much for having me. And I think they figured it out about every 2 or 3 months is about enough. Gotcha. At the table of God's presence, I find what matters most by number 3, sharing most widely what God has given most deeply in my heart. Whatever is deepest in our heart, God put it there for it to be poured out most widely. And when it's authentic and genuine, we've gotten to it, you'll be amazed how it'll spread out into this world to people beyond what you imagine, knowing, being involved with, connecting with, or helping. But you know, we can see the need and rush to it, and that's not so bad, because there's something that's stirring in us to respond to some need. But in this process of maturing and growing in wisdom and understanding of God, he's saying take some time to really sort. Let's go deeper. Because the deeper you go, the more profoundly powerful you'll have in a broader sense in this world. Oftentimes the church seems kind of caught up just with itself and the things here. And there's a deep, profound thing for me about the church being a nurturing to whole health, so that we can go broader out into the world to bring the good news, the good way, the good love, compassion of Jesus Christ into more and more people's lives in deeply personal ways. So it's both and. But if we don't go deeper, we'll get burned out just trying to address the needs of the world. Because God has made us specifically and wants to empower us in the ways that are moving in us. There's something about what moves you that doesn't move everybody, but others will be blessed by and be encouraged and inspired by. Well, we've got to own that, each of us. It's kind of individual, and then it's done in community. It's both and it's done in the world. So sharing most widely what God has given most deeply in my heart. So Solomon woke up, what a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, he worshiped, and then he laid out a banquet, a big feast for everyone that he knew, and in his service around him of people. And I love that. Whatever God moves in our hearts, what most deeply in our hearts, will go widest to the widest circle of people in this world that beyond what we can imagine. But it starts with, if we're stepping over people right near us because we think we only, because of those out farther than us, it's on the way. It's all on the way. Everybody matters to God. How we are with everybody matters to God, because he's looking for people who are learning to have a heart after his own heart. In his own heart, there's no exceptions. Everyone matters. How we are with everybody matters. He'll be amazed what God will open up opportunities. And I mean, when Susan got hold of and Laura and some others about Nathan's situation, man, that was their heart and gift. And look, it just opened up this stuff that, you know, even the dog, for months we've been talking about Nathan moving to the plaza, and the big holdup was what to do about the dog. And some had other suggestions, but I was praying about that, the dog and what to do. How, that really meant a lot to him and his mom, and that the dog be well taken care of. And then one Sunday, Nathan calls me, says, praise God, out of the blue. A neighbor said, this was a couple months ago, said, I'd like to take the dog home, or a month or two ago. Anyway, I don't know, it was some time ago, before this even house cleaning took place. It was some while ago. It was like, there it was. God was encouraging. Nathan was ready to get in, making some transition. And that was one big holdup, and I understood that. We could only talk so much about moving, but the dog had to be taken care of. And so here a neighbor offered to take the dog in. The dog's 14, 15 years old, 15, I think. 17? Oh, I always go lower about ages. And it's pretty much hard to see and hard to hear. And not every, in fact, I was talking to another friend who adopts dogs and stuff, said that's a tough one. And then here this neighbor comes and offers. The door opened suddenly. That was a great encouragement to Nathan. He said, God's working. So then when the birthday came, he was ready, more or less. Not an easy thing to transition in his life so much. But there it was. I remember being so moved by that, because I said, God, I don't see how we could do this, and the dog. So I was about ready to pick it up and drop it off at Susan and Pat's house and just the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. God has an amazing way. And what he asks is that if we go deeper to how he made us, who he made us to be, what moves us, that's a healing and a searching and understanding that's compelled by the love of God, the generous, extravagant love of God that frees us from resistance and complacency and hesitation. Begin to a continuous, ongoing journey. We go deeper there, we'll go wider to the world. Wider to the world. I believe that. As many people say, oh, well, churches are just too self-absorbed, and that may be true in some ways, because I think we kind of can tend to start getting protective about who we are. But when we're really following God's way, we grow deeper so that we go wider, more meaningfully, and more genuinely. We start having compassion for everyone. And instead of insisting on how things should be, we start loving into how God is working for what the world can be like in the face of great challenges. So how will you generously and compassionately share with each person you meet what God has given to you? Start with every person you meet. Every person. If you start making exceptions, you're limiting what God is doing in you and can do through you. Every person matters. Not easy. Some people are delightful, some are difficult. Hey, there you go. But doesn't mean they're meant to be loved any less, right? So okay. I'm going to end here. That's all right. Oh, Nathan's saying go on. Should I? I'm kidding. Can I just pray with you for a moment? We come to you to praise you and thank you for your extravagantly generous love, God. We love you. We want to know you. We want to be honest with you. We want to ask what we can ask of how you can work in our lives more deeply and more freely. We want to share how you made us and what you're doing in our lives and what you want to continue doing. Help us to be free of what holds us back, what we fear, how we're complacent or guarded. Heal our wounds and our resistance. Release us of our sense of having to have control in order to be led in meaningful ways by you. Thank you for this wonderful family here and beautiful people and great hearts that love you. Thank you for being, I'm so grateful for them to be my family. Thank you for this world we live in with all its challenges. You've given us purposeful reasons to be here. Help us to live into that with you, with all our heart. Come, Lord Jesus. In your precious name we pray. Amen.